That's why I like to vote.
Thank you very much.
I picked that voice. Our next speaker is Tom Greminger. He is an independent researcher and a lifelong researcher of St. Genevieve County. He graduated from Southeast Missouri State University majoring in technical education and research biology. He has a master's degree in school administration from the University of Missouri and a specialist degree in school administration from Southeast Missouri State University. Tom has been a teacher and served at St. Genevieve High School as a principal and assistant superintendent. He spent 45 years, by the way, I asked him if he was 120. He spent 45 years at Built Best Corporation working in public relations and as vice president of marketing and sales. He went to work for St. Genevieve Memorial Hospital in their marketing department until his retirement in 2018. He currently volunteers as a research specialist at the St. Genevieve Museum and Learning Center. He served on various boards around St. Genevieve, including the St. Genevieve Industrial Development Corporation and St. Genevieve Industries. In his spare time, Tom enjoys genealogy, Civil War reenactment, and Native American archaeology. Please welcome Tom Greminger, who will present one-room schoolhouse education in St. Genevieve County.
Thank you. Before I start, I want to apologize. This Dutch-German boy, I want to apologize about my French. I've purposely taken all of the French names and everything out of my presentation because I couldn't pronounce it anyway. And I was going to start off this morning by doing this. This is the school bell from Hogemeller School, which is near Weingarten. And this was the bell that was used from about mid-1800s for about 40 years to tell all the kids it's time to school. So that's on loan from the museum, where I found that in a box in the basement at the museum. Presentation this morning is about public education in St. Genevieve County. And as I go through this, and I'm going to keep looking at my notes because I can't remember all these dates and names, but what we're going to cover this morning is public education. Now, I realize that Catholic education and religious education took place many years before the public education was set up in Missouri. Back into the 1700s, there were priests and missionaries that were doing education of the children in St. Genevieve County. But we're gonna more or less start with two things. I guess public education in St. Genevieve County really started as subscription schools. Now, by subscription schools, I'm talking about places like the Academy, and we'll talk a little bit about the Academy. My apologies to John about the Academy. I'm going to skim over the Academy, very, very short information on the Academy, so that I can cover the other 71 locations in St. Genevieve County. And that's what that map is up there. I don't know where you're sitting, if you can see all the red dots, and that's St. Genevieve County. The red dots are where these one-room schoolhouses. And by the way, out of all the research and everything that I've done, I don't think there's one little red schoolhouse in the whole bunch. The only red schoolhouses were later on, late 1800s, where there were red brick schoolhouses that were built. But as far as little red one-room schoolhouses, don't find any out of the 71 that we've got listed in St. Genevieve. And yeah, I'm talking about in St. Genevieve County, we have located, well, actually 77 school locations in St. Genevieve, of which about 65 of them are little one-room schoolhouses in St. Genevieve County. And I want to note that Bob here is responsible for getting me really into this about a year ago, I guess. I was coming out of Lawrencetown Church on a Sunday, which is right here. This is the one-room schoolhouse in Lawrencetown, and the church is right next to it. And a lot of you locals have probably all seen this. I was coming out of church on Sunday, and I said to my wife, I said, boy, and I was walking out of church with Pershing Karen, who is the caretaker of this little one-room schoolhouse. He has completely restored it. It's got the original blackboards, desk and everything, and he takes care of it, keeps it painted, keeps the grass mowed, really takes care of this little one-room schoolhouse. And Pershing is 93, I think, at this point. So don't know what's going to happen when Pershing's gone. But anyway, it's in Lawrencetown, and he loves to take people and show them the inside and some of the pictures and stuff that he's accumulated over the years. Said to my wife, boy, wouldn't it be interesting to see just how many of these are still around in St. Genevieve County? Well, that following Tuesday, we had a Civil War meeting, which Bob and I are both part of the Sons of Union Veterans. And I said to Bob, I said, hey, Bob, and knowing his background and the research that he does in St. Gen, I said, where do I start? Do I go to the school district? Where do I start? He got this funny look on his face, and he says, Tom, I've been working on this for, God, what, how many years, that Bob had been working on. And he said, well, let me send you what I've got so far. Well, I got home, and there was so much that he sent me email that I think it took like 5 different emails that he sent to me on. And the list that I'm going to hand out after a while is basically what I started with Bob's list. So thank you for doing years of research that it would have taken me to do. Anyway, that's where we're going to start. We're going to, as I said, not with any Catholic or Lutheran, which I was really surprised in St. Genevieve County. We're going to talk about strictly public education. And I guess the earliest that I've been able to find, and that's out of the 71, we can probably give you the GPS location of where about 65 of these buildings were in St. Genevieve County. Now what I'm doing is, for the last year, I've been going back and compiling the historical information from newspaper articles, from people that have attended some of these schools. And I've been compiling historical data. And I'm going to give you all a list here of all of these 70-something schools. And any of them that's got a red dot in front of it is schools that we have some historical information on. And any of them that hasn't, I would hope that some of the locals here in the group, if you know something about, or you live near, or maybe you didn't know you lived near one of these locations, that this is a work in process where hopefully we can keep compiling information about these. But it's so interesting that I hope I've got information. I'll stick around for questions, so I would ask that wait with the questions until afterwards so that I can get through, and I'll stick around during lunch, and after the presentations are over today, you can come up and look at some of the historical information that we've compiled. Bunch of pictures of a lot of these schools that we've been able to find from newspaper articles or from family papers. Starting as far as my timeline, and that's the way I've tried to set this presentation up, about the earliest mention of public education in St. Genevieve is just from some letters and some memos that date back to 1790. Well, the letter is actually 1795, but it indicated that this was a subscription type school. And by subscription type school, I'm talking about where this was a dad or a group of dads or in a neighborhood or in a family that would get together, and they would actually hire a tutor to tutor their kids, or maybe a group of kids from a neighborhood or from an area in St. John County. So that's what we're referring to as a subscription school. And a letter at 1795 refers to a Francis Morrill and his dad, Joseph Morrill, who was giving basically private tutoring, or was open for other than religious type school, a subscription type school. And don't know where. We don't know where that was taking place. If it was in the Morrill house, or if it was in some bar and grill, I don't know. But anyway, that's the earliest that I could find as far as public education in St. Genevieve County. Now, keep in mind what I said before. Catholic schools and stuff were in operation even before that, but this is public education that was available to all. And of course, all of you know here in St. Genevieve, I guess the first, I guess you could call it a subscription school because they paid tuition, and people that went there, is the old academy. 1808 is when a group of practitioners are headed up by Father Maxwell. He got a group together, and they come up with, hey, we're going to build the academy as an institution of learning here in St. Genevieve. And it really didn't get into operation until 4 or 5 years later. And the academy, and as I said, apologies to John, who lives in the academy. And I'm just going to glaze over that. And the academy was chartered in 1808 by Father Maxwell and his group. The first classes was in 1810. Classes 1810 to 1818 were, start up and was beginning, and it was all boys. It was older boys. I'm going to say high school age type boys that attended the academy. Don't know about the numbers. John would have all the numbers as far as the enrollment and so forth. But from 1818 to 1821, the Christian brothers, missionary Christian brothers, they were asked to come to the academy as teachers or instructors. So they were there for 3 years or so, and tried to get that up. And I think I read somewhere where that was the first operation of the Christian brothers in North America of teaching. This was their first teaching institution, was the academy here in St. Genevieve. The academy had kind of a rocky history. It was closed down for a few years. 1861, 50 students at a cost of $68 tuition for a 6-month term is what these students would pay, or their dads or whatever would pay for their students to attend the academy. $68 a 6-month term in 1861. It closed during the Civil War as far as an institution, because I think I read where 3 of the teachers were drafted, or they joined, actually I think I read where they joined the Confederate forces, the 3 teachers from the academy. Anyway, it never really reopened until Furman Rozier, he actually bought the school and everything. And there's a lot of back and forth and trading and so forth of I guess the board of administrators of the school of goings on and between the Rozier family and so forth. But anyway, the academy then basically stayed closed, and Furman and his family eventually moves in to the academy and live there through the, I guess, about the 1950s maybe, until it was finally purchased, and it's on the National Register, but it is part of the property that's owned by the R2 school district. And I was on the school board in 1976 when we were still holding classes there in that building after it was purchased or deeded over to the school district. I can remember we had special education classes in the old academy, and I think there was one of our teachers, administrators that actually lived there for a while, and eventually John ends up with the house and has done a lot of renovation and so forth. That's the old academy. That's all I'm going to say about that. If you want to know better history on the academy, John has a really good presentation on the history of the old academy. And here's the old academy, of course. And this picture was, I don't think that's a recent picture. I think it's several years old of the academy that I had on file. After the academy, the next thing in St. Genevieve County was probably, and this is one of the funny things about schools in St. Genevieve. In 1815, a Swiss professor come to St. Genevieve County and started a boys' academy. Here again, a boys' academy. Again, a subscription school where they were paying, tuition and so forth. Started a subscription school down on the, for you locals, the Mineth Highway Z Perry County line. It's right down in that neck of the woods is where this school was. And the real interesting thing about the name of this school was called the Asylum. Okay? And the Asylum become very, very famous in history of the state of Missouri as far as education. And from the Asylum, we definitely know that 3 U.S. senators were graduates from the Asylum. And I would contend that there are some current U.S. senators that also attended the Asylum, but it wasn't this asylum that they attended. So anyway, that has a real interesting history that you can read all about what went on at the asylum and so forth. But it was these boys were taught, according to some of the historical stuff that I found, they were taught, things like political science and philosophy and so forth. Thus, I would imagine why U.S. senators come out of graduates from Mineth. So for you locals, the exact location is kind of fuzzy of where that's at, but we have a general description of that. It was north of the Little Saline. We've got a pretty good description of just about where it's at. Haven't looked for a foundation or anything that may still be there. From there, then we move on to a period of early teachers. Locations unknown was a John Morrill. That the data that we've been able to come up with, John had basically a subscription school, and it was in the Pierce building, which at that time wasn't what the locals know as the old brick, but it was his house. And that was where classes were, I guess you could say, some of the first classes in St. Genevieve, in the town of St. Genevieve, as far as public education, was held in the Pierce house, which later become, you know, the John Scott case and all the history. All of these structures have their own little history, but I'm not going to get into that. But from the old brick in 1824 to 1842, there were classes that were held in the old brick. 1846, public classes were moved to a house or a residence owned by Mrs. Henry Tomyer. And this house is on South Gabourey. And Bob later found out that Miss Tomyer actually owned a couple properties on South Gabourey. And for you locals that know where the foundations, the Meyer House there, the foundation, the first place that we think that school was held was the house right across the street, and later is known as the Butcher House, the Sebastian Butcher House. Okay, that's where we think it might have been, because that's where Mrs. Tomyer owned that property. But we also find out that she may have also owned the Francis Valley II's house, which is about 3 houses down South Gabourey, or right in back of the Foundations building. We all know it as the Sexar House, next to the old Sexar bottling company. And that was the home where Patty Nager, Bill Nager's wife, where she was born and grew up, was right there in that house. So classes was held there in 1846. They kind of outgrew that, and at that time, in the early 1840s, the city of St. Genevieve established a school board, a board of trustees, and they figured out that, hey, we got to build something, we need to move, and that's when First School was built, over on Washington Street. That Sebastian House, and this is a picture from 1913 of South Gabourey. The Foundation for Restoration House is right here. You can just see the corner, but that's where we think that those classes were held, was in the Sebastian House. And like I said, the Valley House is about 3 houses down South Gabourey. From there, the local school board and so forth, they decided to build the First School over on Washington. And this was known as either the Douglas School and the Lincoln School. Along about 1859, I think, is when that school was built. And they used that school. Eventually it was owned by one of the local unions. And it went through where it was used as a daycare center. And when that was outgrown, then they moved back down across the street from on South 2nd Street, across the street from the Lutheran Church, and the Colonial Museum is built there. That's where it's at now. Well, this brick structure, the first of the red brick homes, or the red brick schools, was built right there in that corner. I grew up one house from the schoolyard on South 2nd Street. Anyway, 1877 is when this brick building was built, and that was used there until eventually the R2 school district and so forth built the elementary school up where it's at now, and the high school was built, which is now the middle school. From this school is where they moved to up on the hill. Okay? Now, that pretty well covers, and everything is up to date as far as schools in the city of St. Genevieve. The first school that was built outside, as far as the first school that was built outside, public school building that was built outside of the city of St. Genevieve. Believe it or not, in 1847, it was in Zell. Zell was the first school district in St. Genevieve County outside of the city of St. Genevieve. Now, when we start talking about all of these little one-room schoolhouses, a little bit about the history of education in the state of Missouri. Of course, the state of Missouri only became a state in 1821, and along about 3 years later, they decided to come up with a system of education for the state of Missouri, or a plan of education for the state of Missouri. And they appointed, the state legislature appointed a 3-person, I guess you could call them the first state board of education. They come up with 3 very educated people to establish the State Board of Education and the rules and regulations for how the state of Missouri would handle education. And the one guy that they picked, I think, as more or less the chairman or one of these trustees, was John Hedrich, the Swiss guy that established the asylum from St. Genevieve. So he may have been officially the first state superintendent of schools, was John from Minnesota. Anyway, that's a picture, we believe, the oldest one that we could find. And Jerry Klein's now doing a history book on the history of Zell. And this is where I've got this old photo, was from Jerry on the first public school in Zell, or the first school district that was, you got to remember that every one of these little one-room schoolhouses was a separate school district, okay? They all had, they didn't call them school boards, they call them board of trustees of 3 people that managed these rural schools, of which we come up with like 60 of them in St. Genevieve County. And the first one, as I said, was a school district, and it had 2 different numbers, and the numbers of the districts changed from time to time, but Zell School District was either School District 9 or School District 11 through the ages that it was used. But it was the first one in 1847 in Zell as a school district. Now, the state of Missouri, when they finally came out with their commissioner's report of 3 in 1833, they set up a school plan for the state of Missouri, which basically adopted a way of financing all these school districts in the state of Missouri, which they took out of each section of land in each county. With a section of land is 640 acres. There would be 1/16 of a section set aside for the support of education in the state of Missouri. Well, 1/16 of a section is 40 acres. So the revenue, the tax revenue, or the sale of the property or whatever, from this 1/16 of each section of land, that would be what would support the schools until state income tax and so forth. Valley eventually ended up taking that over. But that's the way the school districts were originally set up, as far as the way they were planned, as far as finances. The school system, and that plan was basically put into effect by the state of Missouri in 1835. The whole system kind of fell apart during the Civil War and wasn't revitalized or rewritten or anything until 1875, quite a ways after, 10 years after the Civil War was over. It was restructured and so forth, and reorganized, and things started to pick up basically along after the Civil War, is when most of these school districts in St. Genevieve County, one-room school districts, started to pop up all over the place. And At this point, whoever's got the copies, if you'll hand those out. Up here's a map of St. Genevieve County. And I know it's hard to see here, but what I did is you can't read the names of the schools, but you might see the red dots that pretty well, if you cover the whole county of St. Genevieve, you'll notice how evenly all these little one-room schools are located throughout the whole county. There's no part of the county that there isn't one of these one-room schoolhouses that were established in St. John County. The list that's coming around is a list of the 77 sites, of which about 65 of them are officially one-room school districts in St. Genevieve County. The ones with the red dots in front of the name of the school is ones that Bob and I have compiled historical information about them. Historical information, newspaper articles, pictures. And I have some of this information of what these schools actually look like, and the historical information in a couple big binders up here, and some loose sheets showing what these schools look like all over St. Genevieve County. I'll give you just a second to hand those out. Just a few interesting stories about some of these schools, and they all have some really interesting stories. A lot, I'd say out of the 71, there's probably a dozen of them that are still standing, but they've been re-sided, re-roofed, additions added on, where they're still in existence, and a lot of them are going to surprise you. You locals, you're going to, when I show you this, you're going to say, "Oh yeah, that's right down the street." This is Bellevue School, which is, if any of the locals, you know where Lurk's Cabinets is? It's right there in that curve. That house was the original one room. Now it's been added on to and sided and so forth. But I just took that picture here a month or so ago of Bellevue. Another one is on Mississippi Lime's property right now, and that's what it looks like. And that was Fairview School, or at one time it was also known as Bowyer School, and it's right down in the middle of the Mississippi Lime operations, right down from Highway 61. Kyle School, as you come in Sugar Bottom Road, and looks nothing like Kyle. I've got a picture of what Kyle School looked like up here on the table, but this is what it looks like today, and it's right in the big curve. If you come in Sugar Bottom Road and you make that 90-degree left turn, it's right there, and of course it's been sided over. The cupola has been taken off, and there's people living in it, as is most of these houses that I'm showing you. That this is one out on New Church Road, right next to New Church Baptist Church. It's on their property, and of course it's been modernized a little bit, but some of the logs are still the original. And it was known on your list that you're getting. It is New Church School, and that is a recent photo of New Church. This, any of you locals that go out Highway M, and right before you go down that long hill, okay, right to the right, and is it Roger? What's the road that turns off there?
Newarktown or Geezy Road?
No, Geezy Road. Geezy Road. Any of that come off of M on Geezy Road? It's right there, just a little bit south of that intersection, and that's what it looked like when it was in operation, or shortly after, and it's no longer there. They just tore it down, what, 2 months ago? 2-3 months ago? And I've got pictures of what it looked like as they were tearing it down. But that is Shady Grove. Got to think of all these fancy little names of these schools, but that's Shady Grove. And as of a couple months ago, it's no longer there. It's gone.
It was actually located on Turkey Hollow Road.
Okay. I knew it was around the Geezy turnoff, which most people would know more where that's at. Then we get, to this one, which is kind of the jewel of the county, as far as I'm concerned, is the Lawrenceville School. And as I said before, this has been completely refurbished, and Pershing takes real good care of it. And Mrs. Deborah Claus, every year, she takes her 3rd grade class. She's the teacher at St. Agnes School in Bloomsdale. She takes her 3rd grade class, and they all dress up in the period dress. And she wears the bonnet and the long dress and so forth. And every year, this is Deb, she takes her 3rd grade class out there, and they hold class in the old schoolroom, as you can see here. And she does that every year with her kids, and they hold regular classes for a day out in Lawrenceville Schoolhouse.
That's
So,
nice.
yeah. As far as other cities that have, other than St. Genevieve, that had a school district that basically was located right in the cities, and of course you have basically Bloomsdale and St. Mary's for you locals. This is the one-room schoolhouse that was built in Bloomsdale, and you can barely, it's a best photo I could find, but this is it over here. And right now the on-ramp where you come out on Highway Y in Bloomsdale and you get the on-ramp on the 55, okay? That on-ramp would be right in back of this school. That's where it's at. There's a parking lot of St. Agnes Church. Okay, that school was in the parking lot of St. Agnes Church, is where that original, from there it went down on Clement Road. Some of you know where they had a 2-year high school on Clement Road, which is back in Bloomsdale as a town and going out towards the river, Clement Road. 2 years, they moved from there, they moved to the Creamery building, which is where the present Bloomsdale Bank, if you all know where Bloomsdale Bank is, you come down through Bloomsdale. The Creamery building was right there. Where the old post office in Bloomsdale, it's gone, but that's where the Creamery building was. And they had 2 years of high school there. And eventually, Bloomsdale School District builds a rock building or a rock school down at the end of Jersey Lane, right in the middle of Bloomsdale. You turn to your, well, if you're going west, you turn to your left and you go down Jersey Lane, right at the Dollar General store, that street, and you go down there, and this was the rock high school. Well, it was grade school and high school for a number of years. C.O. James was the principal there, and that was, well, that was in operation until 1952. And in 1952, the reorganization of school districts, all these little one-room schools, there was 2 big reorganizations in St. Genevieve County. One in 1949. At that point, there was 60 school districts in St. Genevieve County, and they were combined into 5 school districts in 1949. And in 1952, they had another reorganization of school districts. Out of those 5, they reorganized those back into 2 school districts, of which R2 is one of those today, and the other one was Kaufman School District that was left in St. Genevieve County in 1952. 1952, My sister-in-law was a sophomore that went to Bloomsdale High School, and for her junior and senior year, they were bused into St. Genevieve, and she graduated from Valley. Then, yeah, she attended that school, and my father-in-law was one of the school board trustees until 1952, when basically that school district was dissolved. The other one, as I said, was St. Mary's, and there was a frame school building that was built that was there right on the site to where St. Mary's School was, and they tore it down and built this another red brick school, and this is what it originally looked like. And after that, when it became part of R2 school district, they actually added on a gym, and they built a big cafeteria wing off to the left, and that was tore down a few years ago. It's just a blank lot now in St. Mary's. Okay. I think my time's about up, right? Okay. If you have any questions, like I said, I'll stick around. I skipped over a lot because I knew I was probably going to run late, but you're welcome to come up and take a look at some of the historical data that we've got. It's a work in process. We appreciate any information that you could enlighten us on. I'm at the museum on Wednesdays, working down in the archives, and if you haven't been to the new museum, you need to go. There is probably 20 to 50 times as much information in the basement as what's on exhibit upstairs. And Carolyn Bach and I are working on, and we come over, all the old St. Genevieve information is in 90 Tupperware tubs, and we're about halfway through the 90 Tupperware tubs, and we keep finding treasures every time we get into a new tub of information. Like 3 months ago, we found the John Audubon letters in one of those tubs. I was looking for arrowheads and found the John Audubon letters, and it's that way. Shady Grove School, the school that they just tore down on M, up until about 1984, every 5 years, the people that graduated from that school in the mid to late 1800s, they had class reunions. And they always took pictures and had newspaper articles and so forth of the people that attended the class reunions. And all that information is in the museum. We've got things like the Hogemeller school bell. We've got the Hogemeller's teacher's desk, a flip-top desk, high legs. It's in the museum. So there's quite a bit of information. Well, all of it that I could find so far is in this book here at the museum. But every time I go somewhere or talk about the one-room school project, somebody pops up and says, "Oh yeah, my grandpa went to school there," and well, got any old pictures or of that school? We have a lot of, with Bob doing the article in the newspaper every week, as he goes back through. Every so often, I'll get an email from Bob and say, "I found this last week, at 100, 75 years ago. Here's the list of the class people that was in that class and the teachers." A lot of stories, each individual school. For instance, going back to that picture of Zell, the first rural school in St. Genevieve County, that teacher in a public school, the teacher of the Zell school when it was set up was the Catholic nun that was stationed there at St. Joseph's Parish, and she actually taught the public school in Zell. And Ozora was the same way. The Bremen School in Ozora, the public school was actually taught by a Catholic nun. And there's stories like, I got to tell you this one story about Morning Sun School in Stobtown. As I said, there was 3 board of trustees for each of these school districts. The original Morning Sun School was right down below the hill from St. Philip and James Church, where it's at now, for you locals. Right down on the road that goes, I guess it's called Weingarten Road, that goes from Stobtown over to Weingarten, okay? On the Goodell property, it's Goodell property now, was the original Morning Sun School. One of the trustees, he had 3 younger kids, first, second grade, you know, young kids that were walking anywhere from 3 to 4 miles to school each day, okay? One night, I'm not going to mention the name, I got the names, but not going to mention it. One night he goes over and he burns the schoolhouse down, okay? Mornings, and the sheriff's department, of course, that was arson, it's proven arson. Sheriff's department comes out, they tracked him to his school in the mud, found his muddy boots, confronted him and said, what are you thinking? You know, you burnt the schoolhouse down. And he says, yeah. He says, my kids and the kids from this neighborhood are all walking like 3 to 4 miles to school each day. And me being a trustee, I figure if I burn the schoolhouse down, we'll rebuild it over where we live, you know, closer to where the kids are only walking a mile to school each day or something. And he was never prosecuted, never paid a penny in fines, never went to jail. And guess what? They rebuilt Morning Sun School back over at the intersection of where Highway B and it's right before the bridge. What's it called? Eisenbeiss Bottom Road, Highway B and Eisenbeiss Bottom Road. They rebuilt a new Morning Sun School. That's where this trustee, that's where he lived, was over in that neck of the woods. Yeah, so anyway, thank you.
Thank you.